We're back from a slight recess. So we're going to go over to the next page. Just one sec, we're pulling up the document. Okay. Can we go down to the next page, please? So what we have is myself and Anne-Marie Eunice with a brief overview of capital, how the funding works. Then what we're going to do is have guest appearances from different managers throughout the corporation who are going to present their capital projects that are within to be out of here by 7:30. We're asking council to hold your questions till the end of each department. So for example, once community services is wrapped up, then we would open the floor for questions at that point. And we'll go from there. So next slide. So we did cover this briefly in operating. In front of you is a proposed capital budget of just over $17 million. Focusing again on the supported. Property tax comes from the property tax base. User rate supported means it's coming from a user rate system where only that user benefits. So it could be water, it could be building, anything of that sort. So the operating has actually brought revenue in, where I showed you the tax rate increase that was required to fund newer capital. It's the $301,000 that allows us to have a break-even budget. Next slide. Okay, so yeah, the next page is important. There we go. So this is just to highlight how much work administration does in putting a fiscally responsible budget in front of council. So we go through many different versions. You'll see that at draft one, $173,000 of projects were cut. Next slide. At the second draft, we ended up cutting over $3.6 million of capital. So what town staff proposed, we knew that we needed to come up with a happy balance, both funding wise and what was realistically able to be done. So while the priorities are large, we all know that administration did a lot of work and made cuts already in this proposed budget of over $3.5 million. Okay, next page, please. So now I get to hand over to Anne-Marie Eunice, who's going to go over capital.
Okay. So what is asset management? So asset management planning is the ongoing and long-term process that helps municipalities make the best possible investment decision on their infrastructure assets. The province implemented asset management planning for municipal infrastructure, Ontario Regulation 588. In 2022, the town's asset management plan for core assets was updated to meet the requirements of OREG 588. The town plans on updating the asset management plan for non-core assets next year. So the core assets include the following categories: roads, bridges and culverts, stormwater, water, and wastewater. Non-core assets, which we sometimes refer to as general capital, include the following categories: buildings, vehicles, machinery and equipment, and land improvement. The town has approximately $700 million of assets. So the AMP study recommends what the town's asset management expenditure should be annually based on its replacement cost. This table illustrates that even though the town is contributing towards its core assets, we are still in a deficit position compared to our study. This table now illustrates the difference between the recommended annual expenditure for non-core assets and the town's proposed 2024 contribution. In many of the categories, the town's investment is below the AMP's annual recommendation for both core and non-core assets. So most municipalities struggle with the annual infrastructure deficits, and it will take many years to achieve a fully funded program, if at all possible. So the town's asset management plan for core assets does lay out a financial strategy. The asset management plan not only recommends what the annual expenditures should be, it also recommends an annual funding allotment to ensure available funding when asset replacement comes due. Although the town has made commitments towards its core assets, this table does illustrate that the town is still in a deficit compared to the recommended annual funding in the asset management plan. So even though the town is working on its financial plan for its assets, it will still require long-term planning to close this gap. So the town has been making contributions towards the financial plan of its core assets. Over the years, the town has been adding more funding to its asset management reserve through landfill revenue contributions, taxation transfers, and a roads levy. And this is a kind of quick snapshot illustration of the town, of all the town's assets. So I'm going to hand it back to Director Drusevich, who will go over the next slides.
Anne-Marie. So we're just going to wrap up the main funder of capital quickly before we get into the individual presentations. So we'll be able to zoom in at all on that. We may not. On page 54 to 55, if I refer to those pages. What we're looking at is the asset management reserve. So Anne-Marie referred to it. What we've done is, and previous council as well as current council, we've resolved for certain monies to be dedicated to asset management. So 60% of our landfill tipping fees we allocate to the asset management. We also do an additional 20% top up of landfill tipping fees that goes directly into this reserve. So that landfill alternative revenue is crucial to the town's replacement program, right? When it comes to, and when you hear replacement program, what does that mean in layman's terms? It means replacing what we have currently. We're not upgrading any service, but it's making sure that we have the money accessible to us when we do decide to just replace or renew the existing town asset. So what you're going to see further on, if you can scroll to the next page, please, is we need to make sure that annually we're proposing stabilized increases. We really don't have a choice. If we want to make sure that when assets come due, we have funding available, we have to be proposing stabilized rate increases. If we don't, what's going to happen is that exact scenario I presented earlier where it's, we didn't raise enough, suddenly we need a new fire station, 3 potentially, we need to increase it by 4%. That's the model we're trying to get away from. We would rather see a 1%, a 1%, a 1%, so that residents can expect not a drastic increase on their tax bill, but a more level, reasonable amount to help them with personal budgeting. So what you're going to see is that we've actually had to build in a CapEx adjustment. And so just to make sure that the reserve didn't go into a deficit by 2028, we had to reduce the forecasted projects each year by 30%. So I really want to drill home with council and administration that this is the main funder of our asset renewal plan. And without us thinking to funding strategies over the next 5 years, it will deplete, it will go into a deficit, and we won't have the available funding to replace our assets. So this is a very important reserve to look at. If you have any questions on it, feel free to reach out in the next 2 weeks. You'll see that the 1% for the roads is included in this forecast. And we do encourage 1% throughout the forecast to ensure that we don't run into a deficit. So at this point, what I'm going to do is just walk quickly through the layout of capital so that you understand what you're looking at, as well as administration when they do the presentation. So in your budget book, what you're going to see is for each division, separated by property tax reported, you're going to see the proposed capital project number been assigned. Because of potential changes, we don't want to create confusion and assign project numbers that could become obsolete. The project name is what we ask that you refer to when you ask a question. So council contingency, the project description is a brief description of what that project is. The asset management status. So this is important because this determines how we can fund the asset. And I'll go on to that further on, but if it's new, there's only certain things that we can pull on. If it's replacement, again, we rely on that asset management reserve. The project cost is the estimated total dollar value of it. You can see potential funding sources to the right. And these are the different reserves or funding mechanisms we have available to pay for the capital project. You're seeing funding, which is the total at the far right, funded from taxation. Those are important because they directly impact the tax rate. So If council is looking for a project to be added and it needs to be funded from taxation, that would increase the tax rate. If they're looking to reduce the tax rate and they remove a tax funded project, that would accomplish that. We'll get onto the funding again further on in a slide, and council has a handout as well to describe funding. And then funding source is some detail on the specific reserve or funding mechanism. So again, very important, going to play a key role in your deliberations, because if council wants a project that isn't proposed in here, we all need to work together to make sure that the funding is suitable for that proposed project. Next slide. So this is that sort of funding cheat sheet that was developed. Council has a printed copy as well that was provided. And this determines how we can fund assets based on resolution at the end of the day, right? So the reserve management strategy dictates how we can spend monies. And this lays it out in a simple, easy to read chart. So we're going to walk through the example very quickly. Let's say that a councillor puts forward a request for a playground in a new subdivision. This means that it's a new asset, right? There was never before, and the estimated cost is $300,000. So if we look at the new row in the chart above, what you can see is the ways that you can fund it. Because it's new, we can't use that's intended for replacement only, but grant funding is a possibility. Are there other reserves the town holds that could be used? Development charges is a maybe. Is it related to growth with a new subdivision? Likely. I say maybe because development charges, we really do have to look at closely to make sure they're in line with the study before we start spending money. And then funded from taxation, yes, that's a possibility as well. So that's how you read that. Know how to use it for. Okay, next slide. Again, forecast years are conceptual at this point. We've done basic level funding, but they are means finalized projects or lists. A lot of more work needs to be put into the forecast years. So again, more for internal purposes at this point. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to get into the general government projects now. And I believe that Doug leads.
Slide. So under council, there was only one capital project, and it's your council. The top was $50,000. So made a motion last year to reduce it to 25,000. We're putting forward. If you look at the very bottom of the slide, it says funding source. We're telling you right there where the funding model would be coming from. So this one, taxation. Next slide. And next slide. The next one is a budget of 50,000. This is what I talked many times. We're looking for a current report problem solving. So the budget is 50,000, and we have a reserve to cover that cost. So we're not. Next slide. $25,000. We're not sure what may happen at the main station or satellite office. New carpet, could be some fencing, different things. General contingency. This has been pretty stable. Again, the funding source is through a reserve. We've had funding for that, the police contingency reserve. And next slide, just turn this over to Director Morissette.
Thank you, CIO Suite. So this, the OPP building automation system is there currently no system in place. Everything is manually operated. So the biggest issue that we're experiencing as Parks and Facilities monitoring ability to know when their system until it. So what happens is I'll get a call from the OPP saying that the building's too hot and it's already 82, 83 degrees Fahrenheit in the building. So by the time we get that call, it's already far past when to fix it, and we tend to have contractors. So by having this system in place, we'll be able to monitor and get those readouts right away, and we can mitigate the problems before they become too drastic, where we have to call on contractors. Also, it'll be we have had health and safety concerns from the OPP stating that the facility isn't fit for use that high. One of the specific, you have a prisoner inside the building, and the building hot, so it does create issues with them. So building automation system.
Morissette. Next slide. Actually, should say on that one too, there is a reserve funding through the police contingency to cover. Next slide, please. And next slide. So in terms of under legislative services, they oversee cemeteries, and here is Quick Cemetery to replace the current fencing. It's a little hard to see in the picture, but it is pretty dilapidated. $9,000 the cost to have that repaired. And again, the funding source is through the asset management plan. Next slide, please. Last one under legislative services is Erie Cemetery. And this is a budget of $5,000. There's again to repair a fence line. And this would come directly from taxation. I think at this time, corporate services.
Questions? Ahead.
So we'll start off with corporate. Next slide. One more. So the procurement software in the finance and business services department and across the organization, it will allow us to create and track our purchase orders electronically instead of the current system. The budget for this project is $25,000 and it will be funded through the Corporate Services Technology Reserve.
The IT department owns two capital projects for next year. One is a virtual server upgrade. There will be replacing two VM servers at a cost of $30,000. Our current servers are at a 5-year life cycle, so we replace them every 5 years. So now we're due for a couple new ones. So we'll see some improvements in speed, newer technologies, better throughput. That'll be able to handle our network environment. And next slide. Hardware, we could probably use it tonight. So this project is $15,000. So we'll be adding another facility to have hybrid meetings, so cameras, microphones, speakers, and a screen. And those are the only two capital projects for IT.
Okay, go ahead. Community services.
Thank you, Mayor Bundy. You can go to the next slide. We'll start off with the fire budget. So I will introduce Jason Pilon.
Our first project this evening at a cost of $35,500 is our replacement. So our PPE gets at a lifestyle replacement at a cost of, what we do is a year at the 8-year mark for NFPA and the Section 21 guidelines. PPE needs to be replaced at the 10-year mark. So by replacing at the 8-year mark, this allows us to have spare gear. If we have firefighters that get their gear damaged or soiled at a call, it gets sent away. It's gone for approximately 2 weeks. We have spare gear that meets the NFPA standard so they can still enter fires and do their job. And this covers boots, helmets, gloves, pants, hoods, all their turnout gear. Next slide, please. Our next project at a cost of $5,738 is pager replacement. So this is our primary notification for calls. They wear, they tear, they get beat up. We have firefighters that work in all kinds of vast variety of jobs. So they sustain some damage, and this will get us approximately 11 pagers a year and some batteries. Next slide, please. Firefighter recruitment. So this is going to fill our current vacancies. Right now, as it stands, we're short 10 firefighters, and we've got letters of intent that 2 firefighters are going to retire at the end of the 2024 season or year, or when we get new firefighters in place for a recruit program. So at this cost of $144,000, this will cover all their training to the NFPA standard, which covers their firefighter 1, hazmat operations and hazmat awareness. As well, it'll cover all the required people, helmets, boots, gloves, uniform, Class A, and as well as Southwest Fire Academy to provide that training to them. Next slide, please. Our next project at $9,000 is our thermal imaging cameras. So obviously these pieces of equipment are in extreme conditions. So they wear and they tear and they get beat up pretty bad. So by replacing about the $9,000, this will replace 3 of our thermal imaging cameras on our frontline engines. As they get older too, I must note that batteries do not last, and it's not cost efficient to keep changing the batteries. So at that cost, we can get 3 brand new thermal imaging cameras, 1 for each station. Next slide, please. Hoses and appliances. We carry approximately 5,000 feet of hose at all 3 of our stations. That hose is tested annually, and that helps us determine what hose we need to replace. So determining the type of the hose that leaks, it helps us understand what hose we need to replace. So if we got 4-inch supply line that's leaking, we need next year, we need to buy 4-inch hose. If we're attacked, we need to replace that. So at a cost of $15,302, that'll help replace the hose. Further to the hose, it also helps us replace our nozzles, fittings, and appliances, which also sustain quite a bit of damage throughout the year. Next slide, please. At a budget cost of $140,000, we'd like to get an architect to do Station 3. A feasibility study was carried out in 2018 and identified that we need a new station. There's inadequate bathrooms there, training room, change, limited width and length for our apparatus bays. We'd like to get that architect in place to help design the station. Currently, we're undertaking our master fire plan, and that's going to help us determine a good location for that based on our call volume, potential growth in the community and where our firefighters live now. So this would be able to help us, get that design rolling. And so when we get the location in place, we can start. Next slide, please. Defibrillator replacement at a cost of $18,500. Windsor Essex EMS is switching from their LifePak 1000 defibrillators. They've already switched to the Zoll. So to stay consistent with EMS, we're going to switch our defibs over as well. And that all falls into line with our medical tiered response agreement. Right now, if we arrive on scene and we use the defibrillator first, they swap them out at no cost to us. It's part of our agreement. If we stay with our current defibrillator, they're 2 types of pads. We'll be on to buy our new defib pads, as well as the agreement for annual maintenance, cheaper with a little more cost efficient. Next slide. That's it.
Thank you, through the mayor. The architecture drawings. So the master plan be coming out this year, I'm assuming, and so we'll get a master plan. Council will figure out where the location will be, and then you'll go to the architecture drawings.
So the architectural done based on the size of the parcel, we'll need that'll help us determine like the design of the building.
Just a quick question on the, so what do we do with the, if we switch the other ones, do they donate them off or?
Good question. So we did look at Zoll when we looked to purchase them. The cost for the trade-in was very limited, not even worth trading in. They were going to trade them in at a cost of approximately $200. So it's not even worth it to trade in. Our defibs, they're aging, but they could be reused. So we could look at putting them in another municipal building. There was also the thought that we would keep one for the fire special event. So when we go to the Fun Fest, we could have a defibrillator right at our first aid tent, as well as the Harrow Fair. Further to those, not just any event we go to public education, can bring that defib with us.
Okay, we can go to. Okay, Major Cake Bread wasn't able to make it this evening, so I'm going to speak on behalf of Essex Recreation Complex. Next slide. So there are projects. Keep in mind, projects are 50% supported. It is a joint use facility, so the school board does pay for half of these. So there was a multi-year HVAC replacement program. The HVACs are original to the building. So they've undergone a multi-year approach to replace HVACs each year. So this upcoming year is the replacement of unit 1 and 102. They are 26 years old and beyond the useful life. So we're experiencing a lot of call-ins for these units, and replacement is needed. Next slide. Similarly to the HVAC units, the rooftop is being looked at, again, multi-year approach. So certain sections of the building were rated along the way, and they've prioritized the worst ones to the best ones, and now we're replacing this one. So certain these sections that we're replacing, experiencing leakage, and rooftops are requiring replacement. Again, multi-year approach where the school board is funding half of that, and the balance is coming from the AMP reserve. Next slide. And next slide. And Arts, Culture, and Tourism Committee projects. So on a yearly basis, the ACT Committee does look at having a new project. So typically we've done some sort of mural or some other artistic theme. So the ACT Committee works with Manager Cake Red to come up with some priorities and determine what project they're going to be doing. So that is going to be determined what exactly the project will be, but it will have to fit within the $10,000 that we would be giving them, and that's funded through the mural reserve. Next slide. And that's it for that section. So if there's any questions.
Chair, where does the funding for the mural reserve come from?
Specifically, I can turn it to Director Jurcevic.
So we previously had an amount in our operating budget that funded some of that, so from the tax rate. But we had several murals that weren't completed or the budget wasn't used. So we were to allocate those monies into the reserve and build up a reserve for it. So ultimately, the answer is the tax rate.
We talk often of all of these reserves, and I know that they're at the beginning of this, it shows us like, I think like a very high, like a very broad, how much we have in reserves. I'm wondering is it possible, can we get a breakdown of like the mural reserve is this much money in it? Not necessarily right now, but I think I would like to see. We have in a reserve. Well, what does that mean? What does that reserve look like? Like if my savings account, I only have $20 in it, I'm not going to Taco Bell. So I would just like an idea.
That's something we can certainly do and have ready for the deliberation date.
On these partnership costs that we have with the school board, projects are already approved by the school boards. And do we drive the boat on that? Like, are we the ones that determine the roof and when things need to be replaced?
Through your Mayor Bondi. So it is we do have a delegates committee that work closely with the school board. So we meet quarterly to go over what issues we're experiencing with the facility. There's reports from mechanical contractors explaining some of the life cycles and where we're at with those things. So we do have a multi-year approach. It's as I explained with those projects. So we do with the forecast, with the school board forecast several years out to know where we are and what projects are needed. But we do work very closely with the school board to know what projects are needed.
These will happen then.
I can't say they will happen. That's up to council, but I would strongly suggest that they do happen because they are already approved by the school.
Councillor Maybe.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up on that, what happens if we don't approve them?
That situation has, to my knowledge, never come up, but we would certainly have to go through our agreement and work with the legal team to see what rights we would have in refusal of that. But again, these things would be needed for the operational functionality of the building. So we wouldn't be requesting it as part of this year's budget if we didn't feel like it was necessary on our behalf to contribute to that cost.
Do it. We get leaks in our roof and we have to get out buckets. Okay, continue.
introduce Rodney Klee, our manager of Parks and Facilities.
Next slide, please. This is the parks replacement. So this is a budget that we're asking for $1,000 to help us replace the either become damaged or mid its life cycle. So it's unforeseen issues. That's why it's contingency fund. It's also for any kind of parks equipment that we might need repairs on. So any kind of repairs to playground equipment and that sort of thing. Next slide. This is the Harrow Arena grounds way. So we've been working Fair Board as well to plan this. The archway was installed in '56, I believe. It hasn't had a lot of repairs to it. Did raise the arch. I don't know if we've got it, but it's definitely needing attention. They were going to do some repairs to it, but with the potential of the parking lot being redone next year, trying to expand that opening a little bit and kind of make the approach look more like the downtown streets that we just arrow. So we're trying to work with them in conjunction with them, and they're willing to kind of work with us on some cost sharing as far as them redoing the arch portion of it if we do the pillars. So that's something that we'd like to work with them on. Let's speak that. Next slide. This is our ball diamond rehabilitation. $15,000 for the budget. We kind of utilize this fund to do repairs for the baseball diamonds. There's a lot of use on a lot of them that require a lot of additional maintenance, especially some of the hardball diamonds. Annually kind of rebuild and retop the infields. So this is do that. Next slide. Soccer field rehabilitations. This $15,000 budget. This is to repair soccer fields with fertilizer, seed, repairing the soccer pitches, and kind of soccer nets that need to be replaced. This is for utilized in both, same as the baseball diamond one. We're at all awards, so we utilize these funds to maintain our soccer fields. Next slide. Wood chipper. So we looking at purchasing Public Works wood chipper. This will kind of allow us to have equipment so we can kind of go out. We usually rent the equipment, and with these storm cleanups that we've been doing the last few years, especially, we've had our equipment rental for parks was $12,000 this year. So we're looking at to have that equipment ready for us to go out in storms, and plus we have to be on the waiting lists when we do have storms. Like everybody rents out the chippers, so we have to kind of wait for everybody to kind of finish up theirs, and then hopefully we can get it. This will kind of give us the ability to respond. Next slide. This is the kit. Looking at purchasing this for a budget of $15,000. So currently we kind of have just smaller rollers that we have to kind of drain, then move to different parks, trail them. It's hard on from park to park. Allow us our parks because we have so many sites. Okay, give us the ability to move quicker and save time on that and on equipment. Next slide.
So I'll touch on the next few projects. The first project that I'll touch on is the Essex Sports Park. This year, unlikely that we're going in the fields that we're trying to build up for the following year. So this is in an effort to prepare us for the following season. If we went into next year's budgets with and we didn't pass budgets until potentially January, that would only give us 2 months to be able to get some of these amenities, and we wouldn't have enough time to get them. So we're looking ahead with it next year, so we're prepared for the opening in 5. Some of the things needed are nets, parking blocks, benches, bleachers, garbages. But this is obviously with a lot of things going on. We need one thing that a lot of people don't necessarily realize is with the soccer fields being directly up against farmer's field. The complex is further developed, doing farming out there, so don't want the balls to farmers field. Similarly to what we have basically hydro poles with nets to block the ball from going into the fields. So those are things and amenities that we would have to put into this complex to make sure it's good for use. Next slide. So we've also looked at getting a compacted stone trail from Pereira to connect to the Harrow Fairground. That's plan. Months ago, we did work from some consultants regarding the. So we are looking to get started on these initiatives. And some of the had were so we could say. With that, we'd be looking at structure. The plan would be to utilize those or have a potentially efficient if that opportunity came available. But it would be specifically for use towards parking initiatives in the Colchester area. So with that, we'd also be looking at better signage and more bike parking within the facility as well. Right now we do have bike parking, but we don't really have signage or enough of it when we should be really trying to promote local residents if possible to be using bikes and giving them the proper amenities to be there for that. Next slide. With Amos, and we know approaching the OM Park master. Hopefully, we're going to come out with that in the next couple of in an effort to try and accelerate the plan recognized and approved by councils at this point. We do know that like one of the highest rated things in the public surveys. So with Amherstburg's administration to get this in place. So we are looking at utilizing $200,000 from the Coan Park Reserve round, and Amherstburg is going to match that as well. So being a community play, a large scale project would see some of the recent we're around the again, this is a community park, so the standard higher than you would see in your local neighborhood parks. Reason for that cost structure. Next slide. So as this is a corporate for tree assessment. So we essentially we're looking at doing a master plan for trees in the municipality. So we've seen over the past year different emergencies, all of which had trees. So we're looking at coming up with an urban forestry plan. Plan will give us the ability to determine where we can have additional trees throughout the municipality, what sort of maintenance we can do on the trees, types of inventory, where they're located, if they're ours, and really create a plan for the municipality rather than trees. So it's really treating the trees as an the urban forestry plan is looking at it from an asset management point of view, which this would be phase one, would be to gather the inventory and an inventory of locations that we can add additional trees. And then further years, we could work off that plan and start implementing further phases of the urban forestry plan. Next slide. And a couple months ago, we had a delegation approach council for additional swings at Stanton Park. So we did plan of that park with a more ability feature, having some of those were implemented in the design plan. So council the addition of a few swings this budget, so that would come at a cost of $50,000, and the funding source would be the taxation.
This is the Harrow aero compressor system automation system. So similar to what we have in Essex, this system for the compressor plant. So it'll increase efficiencies and allow us to access remotely and monitor and to set out alarms and alert. Currently, it also helps us with diagnosis for contractors, so they can diagnose it from their site, which might be in London or wherever they are. It helps us kind of cut down on costs for them coming down as well. Which is $38,000 back. Next slide. Generator for the port budget of $150,000. We had some engineers come in and do a survey of the electrical system for what we would need to tie into a generator to run in a emergency shelter. We're also applying for some grants. There should be some news coming about that eventually, shortly. That is that'll just basically give us the generator system to operate the community room, some of the bathrooms, the heat in those areas, and the air conditioning, but not the entire complex. But this is for the harbor. Next slide, thank you. Sea dock replacement. So this is the last section of dock that we have that hasn't been life cycle or replaced. We bought this docking system secondhand, maybe 20 years ago. It's been holding up, but it's structurally starting to fail. We're having some issues where we're actually having to replace some of the main structure boards in it. And it's at the point where we have to either do some major overhauls or replace for a life cycle. And that's it. Questions?
Thank you, both of you. Just one comment. When we replace the sea dock, can we please ensure that we don't get docks that come in that have styrofoam, that break down? I don't think it was anybody sitting here, but we've had some docks before that have done a lot of environmental damage. And I do have one question myself to Director Jarusevich. Council Contingency Fund, we have not used it all this year. So is there any way we could, like, is that rolled into our next budget, or could we put it towards something this year, like the generator or something? Just an idea.
Through the chair, if council resolved to dedicate it to a 24 project, that could be done. Oh, yes. The answer is
Okay.
yes.
All right. It was just something to think about. Okay. Councillor Hammond.
Rodney, where are we at with the arena parking lot get resurfaced?
We are currently getting some engineering finals done for the lighting portion of it. The tender should be going out here shortly in the next few months. They didn't want to put the tender out in the middle or the end of the season because most of the contractors already had their work kind of planned out for that season. So it was prudent on us to kind of hold off and wait.
Okay, another one, the archway, you mentioned that the Fair Board is willing to partner on us with that. Did you not?
Yeah.
Well, then, I'm also concerned about our ball diamond and the repairs and the repairing it partly due to the tractor pull. I know the Fair Board has been unwilling in previous years to kind of partner with the refurbishing of those ball diamonds every year. Is that still the case?
Had some informal conversations with the Fair Board on the archway. They are willing to work with us on that. As far as the diamonds, they are supposed to, with that bylaw agreement, they're supposed to bring the diamonds back into the condition that they were when they took over the parks. They have graded and have some staff and the equipment to kind of bring up the diamonds. So we kind of usually the top layer off the diamonds, kind of prep it for that area. But we work with the Fair Board pretty closely to try and get it back as much as possible.
Verbeek and then Councillor Guerin.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Of course, the Cohen Park. So the 400 for the park is 200 and 200 from Amherstburg. So I guess just hoping for a little bit of clarity. That's gonna leave us well over 100,000 or two. And also the next question about Amherstburg, since you and Director Morris don't work with them. I know they have money. I didn't think it was as much as us. Are we going to have the 200 committed? Do we have confirmation? The balance of our Cohen reserve that we're putting away for here.
That go through remaining would be 135,000. That includes unspent capital as well from prior years. That the 25,000 used to be 20. If they didn't spend it all, we put it into that reserve as well. So 135,000 for capital projects at Cohen. I'll let Director Morris do the working with Amherstburg there.
So yeah, we have had, ARC did send us a letter with major infrastructure upgrade. So that was sent to both asset informal conversations with the director of my cohort from that municipality, and they did think it was going to be included in their budget. So in terms of formal, I can't say that it's necessarily formal, but I have had those conversations and there has been verbal commitment to that.
Allard.
3 questions. I love the generator idea for emergencies. Are we looking at a here for our ice making machines or anything like that?
Your Mayor Bondi. So we did look at that option. Cost was coming back at almost $500,000 for that. So the reason why we didn't opt for that option was number one, fiscally, we just don't have the money for that. Number two, we are a declared nuclear emergency secondary center. So being a nuclear emergency center, we should have something in place because so being that type of facility, we should have amenities in place during an emergency situation, which is why we had basically the clean room, some of the dressing room areas, lobby areas, elevator that were at this get the entire potentially added on road, but not at this time.
Good idea. And you look at. Second question I had was with sports field. I don't know if you can go back to the unit. There showed different diamonds and soccer. During just clarity, Rodney or could show us what we can actually expect to be.
Yeah, so for the viewing audience that couldn't see Rodney pointing at the screen. Soccer fields in the center would be they're already there, and the two just to the left, the two small junior diamonds are there as well.
Okay, thanks. And lastly, on the Stanton Court playground and the additional swings and that, I do remember that coming back. I was curious. We never did tender that out yet. Have we?
Through Mayor Bondi, the swings themselves have not been tendered out because we were waiting to see budget deliberations if council wanted to proceed with the project. However, the park itself has been tendered and the PO is with the expectation that the equipment's going to be installed in April or May this upcoming season.
The actual park was tendered, but it didn't get done. So it's in a carry forward. Okay, and they're holding the price, I'm assuming. And this 50 how many swings are we getting extra total will be with this?
So that's correct. It is a carry forward. The PO was already issued. It really just came down, so the equipment's ordered. It really just came down to installation timing in the middle of winter. With the rubber surfacing, it would deteriorate and it would be in a really bad spot to implement. So that's why they're waiting until the weather gets a little nicer. The design plan and the quote that we received for adding on these swings would be 4 additional swings. So it would be 4 senior size swings. Sorry, it would be 5 senior size swings because there is 1 in the current design plan, 1 accessible swing, and then 1 swing. But keep in mind, we can adjust what type of swing is implemented, but it would give a total design of 7 swings.
I have Counselor Allard.
Through the chair, just for Director Morissette again, the swings that when the delegates came, they spoke about doing a fund possibly to offset some of the funding. Is that still available?
Here, Mayor Bondi, so that would be up if they want the entire $50,000 from taxation, or if there's some sort of funding model in place that they would like to see. If there's a certain percentage that they'd like to see in fundraising, I can certainly work with the delegate by if there is an appetite to do that. Decision.
Mayor Bonnie, just so clarifications, because there's some questions on the swing. The motion that council had after the delegation was basically to forward it to budget deliberations. So staff has not taken any further action other than putting it in here, and Director Morissette is getting quotes on what those prices would be.
You can come forward.
Madam Chair, CAO, because I believe mostly deliberation, because that's when we'll talk about it. Point, I'd like a reminder of, so it, I know that how much that part, I don't have the number in front of me, but you know, we just went through this, what the number is, the cost prior to, before we had the 50,000, if we chose to. And do we have any other parks? Like, I'm not talking about brand spanking new ones that have 7+ swings. Municipality?
I'll do a joint effort here with Director Morissette. So on page 60. Carry forward projects, so budget. We don't have actual yet, as Director said, it'll be completed in the new year. You want to answer the second half of that?
Well, further to the comment, the PO was issued for $220,000, but there is a small amount that of the equipment and bring it into the landfill. So we would need that, which would total the $225,000. As for the second part, to my knowledge, there is no other in our municipality that would have that number of swings. Usually, I believe it's 3 to 4 swings. I think 4 is around the standard, but maybe Rodney can weigh in on that.
Yeah, I think the current park that has the most is Colchester. I think it has 6 in total.
Chair, the parking plan for Colchester, I'm just curious, it says funding source, other revenue from paid parking offset project cost. Where do we have paid parking?
Your Mayor Rodney, not current, it would be is implemented this year. We're expecting to have about $12,500 in generated revenue that would offset the cost of this project up front. So it's nothing that we have currently. It's anticipated amounts that we would receive.
So just on the swings, currently the park has 6 adult, 4 baby. So it's going from a huge reduction. So just, we could say, we want to earmark our 20,000 in our council contingency this year, our, 20,000 out of that and community hybrid model. And we could say putting stuff that the community has to fundraise, whether they go to or Rotary or something like that. And then if they don't fundraise, then we something else. Leave the existing swings because they're not, maybe we can swings for 20 and then 5. Just throwing ideas out there. Okay.
We're going to go through the three small projects in development services. Next slide, please. The first project is actually a continuation of an existing project. So the official plan project was initiated in 2022. The consultant was retained to assist the town in preparing a new official plan. There is additional scope, additional services related to changes stemming from the county's official plan, the delays with that project, as well as additional scope in reviewing the county's documents. We've also asked the consultant to give us additional scope for support for settlement boundary. And then with Bill 23 this past year, we do need to incorporate into our official plan. In total, that project or the additional scope amounts to just over 12,000, and the funding source for that project will come from development charges reserve. Next slide, please. The next project is our CWATS soft project. So that's the countywide active transportation system soft projects that include such as education events that we partner with our community services department on, repairs, wayfinding signage, and partnership program in collaboration or in partnership does this project. All 25,000, 50% comes from the town of Essex Trails, and 50% comes from grant through the MPP. Does not hit taxation. Next. And the last project in development, ADU search platform. So about a few months ago, maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, we shared with council that the adusearch.ca, the town of Essex platform, was no longer available due to Terranet licensing issues. The county then we had an opportunity to secure the data, which didn't work out. So what we've done is we've housed this data temporarily in, I don't know, some sort of invisible cloud. It a ton with ADU search back about a year ago. So we have the ability to purchase the data and actually implement it or insert it somehow into our GIS or GeoCortex. This is a one-time fee to add the ADU search data, the reference points, the zoning bylaw regulations, all the work that we did. It would then be a publicly available layer on our current GIS mapping to assist residents in determining the potential for building an ADU in their own backyard. That $7,500 budget, the funding source would be department reserve and 50% development services reserve. Thank you.
12.5 for what soft project they're including long term. Supposed to be under other or supposed to be under grant?
The other is the county's contribution.
Council? You next.
So first, I'd like to thank everybody for allowing us to present the 24 capital budget for infrastructure services. First, we have Norm Nucio, our manager of operations and manage. Will take us through the public works equipment. Next slide.
So good evening, council. This first slide is something that all of council in our last year. Kind of just a snapshot of where our mindset is when replacing assets. Although we do have a fully amortized asset management plan for life cycle assets, we kind of use this rationale when looking at things. So you can unlock appreciation, and the other green shows our costs and repairs going up, and that middle point is kind of the sweet spot when replacing assets. So it doesn't always make sense to completely depreciate an asset when we're costing a lot of money to repair and keep it up. This slide, please. So the first project here is a new pickup for the operations department. This will backfill the shortage that we've had. Shortage for a number of years. We've just kind of needed pickups and it has been an issue for us. So we're also looking for an additional operator in this year's. Isn't contingent on, we're still planning to with that, whether it is will also complement staff member at a budget number of 75 grand. Next slide, please. This is the new one for us. As it says, in accordance with the town strategic plan and climate adaptation plan, this vehicle is being purchased as a pilot project in our infrastructure services department. The idea is, and I hope I don't butcher this, we're moving the infrastructure vehicle currently into the water department. And we've been piloting for the infrastructure. And the next slide. The next one up is our wood chipper. As it said, it's 14 years old, and I was talking about asset management, but we are looking to upgrade to a larger unit in Public Works, and we would be moving this asset over to community services to utilize for roughly another 5 to 6 years. It is still a very good unit. It still functions well. We've put a lot of material through this in the last year or so with the storms and stuff we've had. So it's worked well for us, but it's served its time. And I think it'd be better utilized in community services for its remaining life. At well, like it says up there, at 135,000. Community services would be paying for roughly 26,000 or 27,000 of that remaining life. Slide. So this is a new one for us. With the storms that we had this year, we've realized there's some issues with our public works and operation facilities. We're looking at putting a new generator in at the Harrow shop at 2100 Ferris. This will obviously help with any power outages and any of them have a loss of hydro. The budget here is $80,000, and as you can see, grant what we're applying for. As long as that is approved, we're looking to go forward with it. Next slide, please. And this is the last one, which I think council all seen this year at your council tours. The salt shed on the left is the one in Essex. It's a 40 by 40, and the salt shed on the right is 60 by 20. That's the one currently at the Harrow yard that we utilize at our main yard. The salt shed in Essex, it's not that it's met its life cycle, it's just too small. It basically holds about 500 ton of salt, which would maybe make it through a regular storm, a typical, 5-inch storm or something we would get in the wintertime. So we're looking to mimic the same shop or the same salt shed on the right side, the 60 by 120. This salt shed that we're currently talking about or stuff to utilize out of that and build a new shed at the Essex site to help serve Essex. Obviously, we're growing and taking up roads capacity there. So the intention is, as you can see on the slide, is that we spend about $100,000 this year in site work prep and planning for it. So and getting the plans put together, then moving forward next year, tag is $1 million. So bit of a sticker shock, but that's what we're looking at. So next slide. So this truck is contingent, as I was talking about, we're looking at getting additional operator. This is contingent with the operator being approved in operations. So this would be a 5-ton truck to serve both the north and the south ends. 330,000 5-ton truck to be utilized there. But again, it is contingent based on if that is not approved, then this will hold the capital budget.
Your chair. How come your wood chipper 1,000 and the other wood chipper is
through the mayor? Which wood chipper is the other one?
that we would Parks and Rec?
Through you, Mayor Bonnie, so we're paying the residual value of the wood chipper, not the full plate replacement of a wood chipper. So if you take the upfront cost of a wood chipper over a 20 period and divide it by 6 or divide it by 20 years times 6, because we're paying for of the we're buying it. Community Services is relocating it to, or sorry, Public Works is relocating it to Community Services. We have to do an internal transfer for asset management purposes.
You're proposing that the town has 2 wood chippers.
Yes, we are. Yeah. And the reason for that is because of the number of weather events that we've had this past year. When we do have a significant weather event, it's nearly impossible to rent a wood chipper. And we've had several month wait time to be able to clear some of the trees out. So if we have that wood chipper on hand, then we can, number one, clear out our parks faster, or relocate that unit to Public Works for emergency operations during the actual weather.
Mayor Shepley, then Councilor Berby.
A couple questions. One, the truck, the operator and still need the truck, correct? Fire? That you were proposing. I mean, I'm just, what we'd be running, I mean, when I super heavy, I just wonder what the kilowatt you're looking at getting as opposed to
Put this number together, I didn't necessarily know what we would need. Currently the shop is only a 200 amp single phase service, so we're not running 3-phase. So when I called one of the suppliers, they gave me a rough budgetary item on something that was very similar to what we're looking at. And then we added a little additional monies to it to cover if there was any upgrades or if it was a little more than what they were proposing.
I was only curious. I mean, we purchased one of them recently and it was about 23 kilowatts. So we're 200 amp service as well. That's why I was kind of curious to see. I mean, prices have gone up since we bought ours, but I just wondered. So if you didn't spend the whole budget, it would just go back into the reserve center.
Councilor Hammond.
Yeah, so the salt shed you can get for $100,000, 60 by 120, is it?
Through the chair, no, we're looking at engineering and site works this year is $100,000.
Oh,
Yeah, the
that's
total
too
price
bad.
tag is roughly $1 million salt shed now.
Just one other question. Where are we as far as life cycle for the tarp that's on the one in Harrow?
Through the chair, I don't know that information now. We do have it inspected yearly because they come and strap down, tighten up the tarp for us. I don't know what that is, but I can get back to you on it.
How long it's been now?
Put up in 2016. So I'm going to say there's probably at least a 35 to 40 year life expectancy on the tarp. But like I said, I'd have to get.
I went out for tender for generators, so maybe we could see, and I think it was $50,000 for. Got their quotes. There was quite a bit of, like supply chain. Okay, well,
Just for clarification, that is conditional on the grant for the generator. Council is aware of that.
Through the chair, I believe that's up to council. We are applying for the grant. I think that was the intentions, but if we don't get the grant, I'd still like to move forward with it, but I think it's a decision we'll have to make then.
Through the chair, this is a general question maybe for Director Jurusevich. When we come back to deliberations on the 13th, will we know if grant monies have been received, or will there be more detail on where this money is coming from?
We will give you updates on whatever we awarded grants. You'll notice that anything that there's an asterisk next. have slated that project to be funded through grant and we don't get the grant, the project does not occur. Clear to council that, but just for clarification, generator proposed for Harrow is not contingent on the grant funding. You're going to notice there is no amount in the grant column because likely at the time of creation, there was a need for this, so it was funded from Public Works Contingency Reserve.
So next we have Beth, who's our manager of capital works. Roads and roadside. Then we'll take questions directly after roads and roadside, given that it's quite the topic. And then following that, he'll take care of stormwater management.
Next slide, please. So I wanted to give you guys an idea. This is our updated traffic volume. So this is, we do every year we do traffic counts. So the roads in there are, we have Ward 2, which is, you'll see County Road 11, County Road 12, Town Line. Those are the ones in blue, right? But you can see how much traffic actually passes through there. There's more traffic on North Malden, for example, than there is County Road 12. And next slide. This is the traffic volumes there for Ward 4. So once again, you can see County Road 11, 20, and 50, you know, the largest, and 23 again down to County Road 20 having the largest traffic, but we also have large amounts of traffic Wright Road, Gore Road, and Smith Road, the road that we share with the town of Amherstburg. Next slide, please. You guys have seen this slide from last week's presentation, presentation to council. So you can see the PCI road index on the left, and then the number of years on the bottom, and you can see how you know, preventative maintenance is the most important. It's also the cheapest in order to do it. And then as we go forward, as the assets deteriorate, then we actually get towards rehabilitation. And then finally, if we let the assets keep going down, it drops into a reconstruction, which costs astronomically more than if we try and keep our roads up using routine maintenance. Next slide, please. So the first project that we have for roads and roadside is the CWATS feasibility study. This is a study for a CWATS trail on Talbot Street, officially from the Kingsville town limits up to Field Town Line. Right now, trail ends at Kingsville, and then we lose the paved shoulder. So we're looking to try and have that be a future CWATS project. In order to see the viability of that, we need to, it's best to always have a report done. The budget for this is $30,000, and there'll be a certain amount of that that will also be covered by the County of Essex through this. Next slide, please. Another CWATS pro is our next project. So we have the trail on County Road. So this year we just completed phase 1. And now we are looking to do phase 2. And because of the grant funding that we have received, we're actually looking to do phases 2 and 3 this year. So we will finish the CWATS trail in 20 with the County of Essex as a complete County Road 50. So that project will be finished a year in advance. Remaining budget, $7 million. And like I mentioned, we have grant funding, I believe, for the full total of that. So it's taxation. Next slide. Sidewalk. So every year, the town goes and we place here within the town sidewalks that are 4 feet or smaller, that don't meet the requirements, putting in the tactile plates, removing sidewalks when it's on both sides of the road and they're both deficient. So we have various ones that we complete in each ward. Colchester. So they don't usually get anything, but we have been doing ones in Essex, Harrow, and in McGregor Central. The budget for this year we're proposing is $135,000. Next one, slide, please. So now we're getting into our hot mix asphalt program. So we are proposing to do 2 roads this year. One is out in Ward 3, sorry, Wright Road. This one we're looking to do a Cyrene road base and then pave over it to extend its useful life. We are going to try and partner with the County of Essex like we had done in past years. This is our anticipation to do that, have them tender it for us. The proposed budget for this would be $800,000. And like I said, it'd be completed by the county and they usually do all the contract administration, material testing and that on behalf of the town. And we just pay them for their services. The next slide. The second hot mix project for 2024 that we're proposing is to do Arthur, Murdoch, Taylor, and I think it's is it Harrison? Harrison. So this past year in 2023, we started doing Arthur Street from County Road 20 South. We'd like to continue on from there. All the roads in this area have underground infrastructure. They're still relatively new, about maybe half or less of its useful life. So we have many years left to go. However, the roads are in poor shape. Last year we had to go in mill full depth and have to spend a little bit more on that project. We were still under budget overall, but we know what the soil conditions are out there and what to expect. So this year we're proposing to do full depth, recompact, extend the useful life, and put 2 lifts of asphalt in their base and surface. And once again, we're going to try and run this project through the County of Essex if we're able to try and get a better price. Next slide, please. Ridge Road rehabilitation. So this would be the second phase. So last year we completed phase 1 from County 20 to a little south of the Huffman. Now we'd like to continue on all the way to County Road 50. The price tag on this is $1,050,000, but by having a larger size project, hopefully we can get better pricing from the contractor, because then that's not being small pieces along the way, have one larger job. So we'd be doing the same thing we would do this year. So we found concrete under the road. So we decided to go with the cold recycled, and then we put it on 2 lifts of tar and chip. A third lift would follow. And because we had already inundated the residents to the north with that, we would do the third lift for them as well in 2025. That money is allocated through the previous project for last year. So we do a third lift of tar and chip stone in 2025. Next slide, please. Next, we have our annual road resurfacing program. So for our tar roads, we are trying to extend the useful life, doing the maintenance there. We would do 1 lift tar and chip treatment on various roads throughout the different wards 2 and 3, depending on the roads that are needed the most. We are looking to have a budget of $450,000 to maintain our roads so we don't let them drop down to needing reconstruction. Next slide, please. This is for the Maidstone Arthur South Talbot intersection improvement, and this is for engineering. So it's been noted, obviously, in the past, and we tried to do a fix, but the price came in a little high for the intersection at Reed Street. But we also know that we need a double left-hand turn lane on South Talbot to get onto Maidstone Avenue. We partner with the County of Essex a little bit. They'd have a little bit of funding that would go towards covering this project because Maidstone Avenue is their road. But for engineering in 2024, we do an RFP to get a engineering proposal in and select someone to design in 2024 with the expectation to get their construction cost estimate and have it in the future budget to reconstruct this intersection and fix Reed Street at the same time. And as part of that, we'll also likely need a little bit of funds that I believe will fall under the future budget to try and see if we can get some lands on the adjacent property there to make a better radius. So we have a traffic flow through the road and can finally eliminate the 3-way stop that temporarily help solve the traffic problem. Next slide, please. Another engineering program here for this project. So this is Maidstone Avenue at Talbot Street. So we had previously had some engineering design done. It allowed us to figure out what design we want to kind of use with doing a layout. And we use that to try and figure out and to get property acquisitions at the gas station. We're also looking to get property at the RVC. And so we've got a price. We reached out and got a price from the consultant that did our preliminary design, and we would like to use them to do the engineering design for the whole intersection. Looking at $80,000 to have the engineering design, and then that could be a future road reconstruction project in a future budget year. Next slide, please. Irwin Avenue reconstruction. So this one you have already pre-approved at the last council meeting, but to kind of reiterate that this project will be going on next year. We'll be redoing Irwin Avenue as well as Small Bryan and Wellington Street from Arthur Avenue to Gosfield Town Line. The price tag on this is $4.35 million. It's a full road reconstruction, sidewalks, driveways, sewer, water main that would need to be replaced, storm sewers. And like I said, you've already previously approved. Try and get that out for tender in January so we can back started in construction as soon as we can into 2024. That's the last one. Next. Yes. Questions on road?
you, Mr. Macbeth. I think in the future, when we get this, if we could have under the hot asphalt resurfacing mix program, if we could have the roads that are under there listed in this document. This is probably more for Director Drusevich. Like, I didn't know that, you know, Arthur South and Taylor and like have it in there so that we can see it, because we just see what roads are in there. Questions, comments from council members? Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Glad to see that we're with the county again. I mean, we realized there was those savings last year, and anytime we can do that, I think that's fantastic. I'm glad you guys are always looking to save us some money where you can.
For rural road resurfacing programs, you 2 and 3, are they the only ones that you do resurfacing on, those 2 wards?
Those every other road in Ward 1 and 6. Access roads. So only the roads that Township Road.
For those roads, do we know ahead, like right in Arthur, you told us for the rural roads, do you know which ones you're looking to resurface?
Through the chair, the roads that I had planned to do next year are looking to try the third concession from County Road 20 to Roseboro Road, as well as McCormick Road from the 4th to the 3rd. McCormick from the 3rd to 20 because it jogs a bit there, which is why we're also going to do that to the McCormick, and the would be between the list for options. So if we get really good pricing like we did this past year, we would you know, have a few provisional roads and add those in, or as needed depending on what pricing that we got. So we would, those are the ones we're hoping to do, and then there might be a few others that we'll throw in. And then if it goes back one road a year or something like that, it wouldn't be.
It's really hard for us. Like, again, those should be there. Like, these are political decisions too. So I'd like to see that in the budget document. You could send us all of the projects that are proposed in here. And I'd even like to see where are going to be. Director Gerard.
So yeah, I just want to provide a little specifically the annual sidewalk replacement and the rural roads program. Those asset management changes in the government. We realize that these are really projects that extend the useful life of so what these are the roads that are in the hot mix asphalt program. We can certainly provide that list of roads to you. However, the are the ones we planning to do, but they are subject to change. These are monies that we use to do edge repairs, spray patching, different types of repairs as they're needed in that actual budget year. So I caution against providing that list of roads only because they are subject to change, and I don't want the public to be, you know, upset that they thought their road was getting done, but it really may not. So the list of roads that Dave has provided are certainly on our radar. There's certainly a high likeliness that we're going to get those roads done this year. Caution to committing to that in the budget document. As far as the sidewalks, it's the same type of principle. So those were costs that capital that were asset management. However, that money is also utilized to do repairs to sidewalks, not just long stretches of sidewalks. So if there are panels to be replaced, if there are short stretches to be replaced, we utilize that money as well to tackle small pieces of panels throughout town. in all 4 wards. So again, I caution against providing specific sidewalks in likeliness that we don't get to those sidewalks. So we can certainly provide what we've explained here tonight. Is just caution of when you communicate to the public that they are subject to change.
And I understand the history and how we do things. And I think the history and how we do things in terms of roads needs to change. I think council needs to be more involved in roads and where we're doing things, because I've been like over the years, I find out that we're doing a road after. And I think sometimes roads should have more of a political decision. I totally understand administration's point of view, but we need to have opportunities for input. And for example, this year in Ward 4, we found out, Councillor Hammond and I, that Church Street was losing a section of sidewalk. So it was a change. So we need to know. And even if we change it, that's fine, but we need to be more informed. And I feel very passionately about this. So maybe at some point there'll be a motion. We need to have a roads plan where we can actually see what's happening, because we have no information when it comes to telling residents anything. And I know that plans change. Walnut's been on the docket since I started council and it still isn't done. So I know that plans change, but I think we are doing a disservice to our residents by not providing them more information. That's where I'll leave it tonight. Councillor McGuire Blaze.
I'm gonna say, I don't see why we can't say, these are the top 10 roads that we're looking to do a resurfacing program on. And they may not necessarily get done in 2024, but we can then say to a resident, listen, you're in the top 10. So as soon as money's come available, like, we're going to go through this list. To me, again, it's a notice of motion. It's something that we need to change, but I think that that's something that council should be privy to.
Who I have, Councillor Guerin.
So I appreciate those comments. It's definitely, even improving on a communication plan in terms of when we're doing works and how those will be taking place. I certainly agree that I can appreciate the political. I do want to also remind council that in your strategic plan, we do have those initiatives included in there to put together a 10-year road plan as well as a 5-year servicing plan. So it is something that is absolutely on our radar. We do understand that need to be able to communicate long-term and short-term plans for the town, especially in terms of infrastructure and how it impacts residents. So that initiative is coming, and I can assure you that we are working diligently on that.
2 questions. One on what about shoulders that are in urban areas, like on roads that don't have curb and gutter, Millen, Day Street, Eiler, where maybe people are parking on the shoulder of the road and the edges of the road are deteriorating, and it's maybe like a foot to 3 feet wide in some cases, where we're getting cracked asphalt holes, broken debris. Where does that all fall under here?
So road repairs like that would fall under the operating budget. So any patchwork like that would fall under operations. When you speak about roads that may require reconstruction or curbs and gutters, things like that, not every urban road will necessarily need curb and gutter and all of those different things. Each road is reviewed based on stormwater management, any other infrastructure needs, all things like that. Obviously, reconstruction, as you know, you can see from the Irwin Avenue project, just this piece of road here is going to cost the municipality almost $4.5 million. So, I mean, the cost of construction is very great. If you're looking to make amendments, or if you're concerned about how people are parking within those roads, that is something that we need to have as a discussion at council regarding parking restrictions and how that impacts the public. Again, I'll caution again the three most contentious things in municipalities: sidewalks, speeding, and parking. So parking is something that can be that needs to be looked at very cautiously.
No, I wasn't suggesting that those roads need curb and gutter, but when they do get to that point where I know they will be curb and gutter. I guess I'm referring to those roads in particular. Our residents are parks and bike, and it's just a pothole. The whole shoulder, like I say, 3 feet of it is really dangerous. I walk by the same place 5 months later and the same situation will be there where there's deteriorated shoulder, broken up concrete pieces. You can just literally go and pick them up. I'm just wondering, when do we identify those and how can we do fixes to the shoulders? Should we have some type of a urban shoulder plan? You're saying it all comes out of operating?
So I mean, when we receive reports to report a problem for those types of things, potholes, broken asphalt, those types of things, then we address it with our operations department, and that's funded from operations. If you're talking about like connectivity for pedestrians and walkability of our roads, things like that, and roads that are missing sidewalks, that's a level of service increase. So very similar to what we talked about earlier. Any additions to sidewalks, any additions to pedestrian facilities, that has a major cost. So that's something that if council wants to consider increasing the walkability of the community, that's something that we can certainly put together as a plan. However, it comes at a great cost as well.
We'll talk more about it, I guess, next meeting, because I got some other ideas too, but on the engineer design we're gonna do for South Talbot Road, Reed Street to Maidstone. I'm reading some of the notes in here about turning lanes and that. If we do this and we put that out, they're gonna actually look at the whole road. Like, if I'm really concerned about the intersection on the private road come out of Tim Hortons McDonald's, which I'm assuming is also gonna feed the future hotel. And I'm also concerned about where the driveway comes in and out of Home Hardware. That intersection, it's just single lanes and it seems to be a problem. Will they be looking at addressing that whole quarter area, or just specifically what we tell them to look at?
So we'll come up with a scope for what engineering that we want to have. We have had traffic studies done, or we'll have a report done as part of this work, and as part of that, they'll come forward with recommendations of what it will be. Our anticipation, though, is that it'll be a dual left-hand turn, Stone Avenue, single lane coming southbound onto Talbot, and another lane based on. So basically, essentially, acting as a left-hand turn. I don't know if there'll be much intersection improvement, Home Hardware and as well as the private road that is for Tim Hortons and McDonald's. Being as it's so close to the intersection, and you have certain lengths of road for storage, for turning lengths and stuff like that. I just don't know if there's enough room. But now, you had also mentioned about future hotel access. Whether or not it will be what that'll turn into, whether or not it'll be a hotel or a different business. At some point, we'll have to look at where the location of that will be, and there might be an opportunity at that time to potentially eliminate the access at Tim Hortons there and route it south more towards Reed Street and have an entrance into that plaza there. But until we actually see a detailed design in the future for what that would be, it's hard to comment as to know what that would be. So if we can make intersection improvements, being as they are so close, there's too much that will be done to improve hardware /
Through the chair, that is plan here with. I think Dave's comments are spot on. I think it's a very difficult intersection given the proximity to traffic signal. But the intent is to have to improve especially those peak times where the restaurants are really predominant in there. So if council wishes to do that, we'll take the conversation into consideration for the task.
Quick question, Mr. Macbeth, on the Mole Road, is that the one right at South Mall, that the bridge there you're talking about?
Yeah, that is the one near Guestwood Camp. Yeah.
Wondering, is that, once that's repaired and that, does that hold up any, when we have to do a project like that, does that hold up the road repairs or any of the work that gets done on that road throughout the year because this is a priority? I'm just curious. Like, I've had quite a few calls from some of the residents on the Mole about the condition of the Mole Road. So I'm just wondering if maybe this bridge would be part of that reason for the delay on the.
Chair. So we obviously try and get our structures done first when we can. So that's why we're proposing to try and get that one constructed next year. We know the Mole is depending on the assessment and timing of things and budget, will either be a single overlay to extend the useful life and or a full reconstruction depending on the condition of it. But we know the Mole Road is a future road that needs to be done down the line at some point. So yes.
We had Manager of Environmental Services, Robert Mackey, who will be taking our waterways.
Good evening, Council. I'll be presenting the slides here for our capital budget for environmental services, which will go over our water and wastewater. Next slide, please. Oh, back one. Okay. Oh, I thought it's different. So for us, we have the recommendations. So we're going to see that going forward here for our facilities, when it comes to capital recommendations, that the running that we replace components of our facilities. So 3, 4 water treatment facility. We've got some key items here that need to get replaced. We have the clarifier valve room rehabilitation. We have some valves, fittings, and pipes that are original to the facility and they're past their useful life. We also have the backwash pump replacement, which is very key and crucial to our treatment operations. It's original to the facility and it's past its useful life. As well, we have the raw inlet valve gearbox and actuator, which is down at our low lift station down at Bagot and Jackson, which is due to be replaced. And the pneumatic hoist system over at the water treatment plant needs to be replaced as well. So the total budget for our water treatment plant for capital upgrades is $456,000. Next slide, please. So we have a budget here of $250,000 for various water main engineering and design. So this is for creating engineered designs for future water mains that are currently at or past their useful life. And we're trying to create some shovel-ready water main projects that can be aligned with road projects in the future. The next slide. So we're looking at our heavy-duty pickup truck, unit 613. The budget is $100,000. As you can see, we have a little over 200,000 kilometers on this truck. It's getting past its useful life. We're starting to see a lot of corrosion, and the servicing and repair costs are starting to climb up over the last few years. So we're looking to replace this 3/4 ton truck, and the budget is $100,000. Next slide. Any questions regarding the water cap? Okay, so we'll move on to our sanitary and wastewater. Next slide, please. Next, yeah, there we go. So with Ward 1, we have 2 different treatment facilities here for our wastewater. We'll start with our Essex Pollution Control plant, which treats about 50% of the Essex Center here. So we have a $750 budget. So like I said before, we're really looking at some of the key components in our facilities that are either original to the facility itself or are due to be replaced. So we have the centrifuge. The DFD needs to be replaced for our centrifuge at the treatment plant here, as well as the aeration blowers. They need an overhaul. The motors themselves don't need to be fully replaced, but there's key components within them that need to be replaced, as well as pump station 3 on Fairview, the original pump station. The pumps are original to the facility, and we're getting towards the end of their useful life, so we're looking to replace them ahead of time. And then we have the Northeast Lagoon, which treats about the north end of Essex Center here. We have a tag of $425,000 for our budget. Like I said before, we're looking at, just components of the facility that are original. So we're looking at Pump Station 4 over at Maidstone Avenue. The current generator there is original to the facility, is starting to break down, is starting to need repairs. We're finding that some of the components are getting very hard to source. It's time to upgrade the generator at Pump Station 4. And then when you're going to upgrade the generator, you have to upgrade the MCC electrical panel as well. So that's over at Pump Station 4. And then we have various ladder repairs that need to be done at the wet well. So for a total budget for wastewater in Essex Center is $700. Next slide, please. So now we're off to Ward 3, the Colchester Lagoon. We have a total budget of $76,500. We have various repairs to our ladder systems in our wet wells across all of our pump stations across Colchester, as well as a portable backup generator in order to get it to its useful life. So we're looking at replacing our backup generator to power our pump station, as well as the broad auto treatment facility needs to get replaced as well. Next slide. And then Ward 4 with our Harrow Lagoon system. Like I said before, so we're looking at replacing the motors for our aerators at the lagoon. They're original to the facility, and we're looking to get them replaced, as well as sluice gate for the pump station out at Roseboro versus sluice gate is due to be replaced. And we have a total budget of $90,000.
You, do all of our pump stations at our in our sewage systems have generators?
Not all, like full-time generators. No, not all of our pump stations. So a lot of the pump stations in Colchester rely on a backup generator that we have stationed at the treatment plant, and it gets pulled to all the different pump stations as they go out of power and power them up and pump the sewage away.
AO Suite.
Just to be quick, although Director Gerard said best for last for Mr. Mackey, just want to remind council there was some large numbers in there, but all the projects Mr. Mackey presented are all user rate based, right? Does not touch the tax.
Director Drusevich.
Okay, we're almost there, guys. So just a couple of closing remarks. You'll notice there's an entire section on carry forwards. Forward projects are projects that have already been approved through previous budget cycles. There are no new asks within those. Those are just projects for many different reasons couldn't be completed in 23 and will be carried forward into the 24 year for completion. If they're required for, see that in the 24 request. Okay. Please. So next steps. At this point, the document is yours to take back. We highly encourage you to reach out to administration and set up a one-on-one meeting, as well as with the other directors with any ideas that you might have, making sure that the funding models work. We're here to help. We also want to make sure that smoothly on the 13th. Again, that funding sheet that was provided, if council intends to bring new projects forward, we have to make sure that the funding models align with that chart. So any questions that you have on any projects that are outside of the proposed budget document, please bring them forward. We're here to answer any questions at all. So just reach out and we're more than happy to assist. Sorry, give me 2 seconds. So also in front of council is a printed copy of the council requests. So this year we had an online submission process where councillors could put forward different requests. So it's not included in budget document as of yet, because these will be some of the projects that we anticipate will be discussed at the deliberation. So just in reading that summary, what you will see is that have already been included in the budget document. So we reference the page number that they were included in. Capital, but more strategic ideas. So we've separated the sections. But again, any questions on how funding could work for those projects, or any of the administration comments that were placed there, please feel free to reach out to myself or the director. Thank you all for attending. I know CEO Sweet wants to say something.
Thank you, Director Jusevich, Mayor Bondi. I want to thank everybody. There's a lot of information tonight. We understand that. And that is the intent of the budget walkthrough, right? To give you a lot of information, present the document. So please ask, go through it, take your time, and as Director Jusevich, set up those meetings with either her or other directors. We will send to you both presentations. So for example, with the capital, everyone had what the budget cost was, the rationale, and at the bottom, it showed where it was being paid for. I noticed in some, there's some acronyms, OCIF, CCBF, the former gas tax. If you have any of those questions, let us know. It will help. But I think if you use that with your budget document, that may help as well. Greatly appreciate your time.
More prepared. I would like us of the roads proposed in the area that manager spoke of, just because we're going to look at this budget document, we don't know done and where, and I think we need more information. That would help us on the 13th. So we need to be more prepared. We need more information. I need a motion that we receive for our 2024 budget and for-year forecast. Have yet, Councillor. And that is Carrie.